So I saw Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse and I really enjoyed it. But I can't help but think about one small part of this massive part one of a multi-part story. And that's the sequence when Miles travels to Nueva York, meets Miguel, aka Spider-Man 2099, and he learns about this idea called a canon event, which is an inflection point in the story of each dimension's Spider-Person where the Captain Stacy of their realm dies tragically. Spider-Man is supposed to experience this loss firsthand, and its utility is to help them grow as a person and become a better hero. If this tragedy doesn't happen, what is basically a black hole opens in that world and does serious harm. The problem for Miles is that his Captain Stacy is his own father. Pretty compelling, right? Well, unfortunately, it's hard for that information to really sink deep down in my emotional roots because I was in the theater and all of these references are popping up out of nowhere as we're learning this information, and all the nerds are soy-facing and making all the noise in the world. Look, I'm not anti-fun, okay? I love fun. Fun is fun. F is for friends who do stuff together, okay? I understand fun. But there's a very fine line, especially in storytelling, with fun and staying on task. How references are used now, especially in this post-Deadpool era where being meta equals good, exciting, and worth schlepping yourself to a theater to see, feels like the references aren't there to enhance the story, it's to quite literally stop the story. There's comfort in nostalgia, but when we're so focused on looking backward, what's there to look forward to? Things in the world are really bad right now, as they've always been, and the future is looking pretty bleak, but this specific generation has gone through the fucking ringer, and it's really easy to fall back on former comforts to remind you of what was subjectively a simpler time. And the narrative device that multiverses provide allows for us to indulge in that comfort, and I think that overindulging in that comfort is really dangerous. Personally, it stunts your growth, and culturally, it stunts progress, whether that's artistically or socioeconomically. I got too real there, so back to cinema. In the middle of this month, we're getting The Flash, which the whole selling point of the film, now that Ezra Miller has proven themselves to be a fucking demon, is just the referential nature of the casting. Remember General Zod? Remember Batfleck? Remember Michael Keaton? Wanna get nuts? Let's get nuts? I'm sure there's more shit in there we don't know about yet, and I'm sure there's a story, but like, are we pretending we're going into a film that was supposed to come out in 2018 for any other reason? And honestly, I thought that was all I was gonna say about The Flash, but I had the displeasure of actually seeing it, and holy shit. The Flash does something even more insidious than anything I've mentioned so far, and that is the revival of dead actors. This practice has been done before, and it was really gross then, and it's really gross now, and I don't think there's ever been a justifiable reason to do it, and I will explain why in a second, but I think it's important to lay down some groundwork really quick. It's been done famously in the Fast and Furious films, mostly in Furious 7, but also sporadically in subsequent films. There was a chocolate ad with Audrey Hepburn in 2014, and at one point there was a film being made called Finding Jack where some hogs were planning on reviving James Dean from the dead to quote-unquote act in this film, but it was thankfully scrapped and hasn't been heard of for over 4 years. Recently, Harold Ramis was turned into a mute CGI thing for Ghostbusters Afterlife, and this all started exactly 30 years ago with The Crow, where they digitally placed Brandon Lee's face on future John Wick director Chad Stahelski's body for some scenes to complete the film, even though he was killed on set making that same movie.
Next, effects magicians work their digital wizardry, allowing JFK and LBJ to have a chat with Tom Hanks.
That must be a sight.
Reviving dead actors for the sake of making or finishing a movie is so disgusting to me for a couple of reasons. One, the actors can't consent to the usage of their likeness after their death, so we don't even know if they like the material they're being used in. And two, just creating a CGI model of a dead actor and making them make choices or facial expressions they've done in previous films This is not acting. This is not a performance you are watching. This is puppetry. Acting is reacting in real time and being present with the actor opposite you or the environment you're in. One thing that people love to do is jerk off improv moments. And if you're watching a video like this, you're more than aware that actors have their own input and point of view on their character and the choices they make in the dialogue that they say. And if you're reviving a dead actor through a computer, that dead actor cannot give their own input because they are dead. It's a mess. It is an ethical mess. It's an artistic mess. It's a mess. And basically, these producers are doing that one scene from SpongeBob. And in The Flash, they exhumed the body of Christopher Reeve just so he can stand there and smile. They made his likeness do the same mute thing that Jason Reitman did to Harold Ramis in Ghostbusters. It's weird because it's like they think that if they made these actors talk, that all of a sudden that choice would be worse than the choice they've already made. It's cowardly, it's disgusting, and look, if you think it's cool because we get to see these actors again, just watch the other fucking movies they were in. It's that simple. Christopher Reeve didn't just make 4 Superman movies and call it a day. He did other shit. And if it meant everything to this director to bring previous Supermen back to the screen in this movie called The Flash, there are still plenty of actors who have played Superman that are still alive. And one of them was actually in a film that takes place in the same continuity as the Christopher Reeve movies. But that movie didn't have a director, so we'll just ignore that. And going back to my main point about these references stopping the story and making the movie worse, the film ends with the Flash undoing all the harm he caused to the space-time continuum because he learned his lesson not to mess with the past and accept the present. The climactic scene with his mother is actually pretty good and it got an emotional reaction out of me. The Rosalia needle drop helped its case, but it was still pretty good. But a couple of scenes later, you realize that he didn't learn his lesson at all, and he fucked with the timeline again. But the only consequence of him not learning his lesson is just an excuse to end the film with a George Clooney cameo. Because remember when he was Batman? This shit is so stupid. This movie deserves to bomb, and it is, and James Gunn is absolutely off his rocker for saying that this is one of the greatest films ever made.
He shot The Flash, which people are going to see is just one of the greatest movies ever made.
Still excited for Superman, though. Space Jam 2 and Ready Player One were really embarrassing, but again, the selling points of those films rested on the laurels of an iconic 90s film and an extensive library of IP Warner Brothers owns that they could get a bunch of overworked VFX artists to throw into these gross collages of I don't even know what. Like, the Iron Giant's whole arc in The Iron Giant was about him not being a weapon of death, and look at him, just chilling on the battlefield. But that doesn't matter because I know what that is. The worst part of the Batman, which for the first 2.5 hours felt like a breath of fresh air, was a random Joker cameo because Joker is box office and we all know who he is. The whole selling point of last year's Black Adam wasn't The Rock or the IP, it was Henry Cavill returning as Superman for a scene that happens after the movie ends, and he appears for like, what, 10 seconds? And then he found out he actually wasn't going to be Superman anymore, and now the people who like and watch The Witcher, couldn't be me, are stuck with a human charisma vacuum for the rest of the show's run. And it's not just Warner Brothers that does this. Marvel is a main culprit of this in our culture. We've got 2 separate Spider-Man film franchises with multiverses in them, and the buzz around No Way Home was the Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire leak. Thanks, John Campea, would have loved to have found that out in the theater like a normal person.
I didn't even share all the pictures. Should I give you a little tease? I'll give you a little tease. Gonna give you a tease.
Remember in 2017, which was 6 years ago, when Hugh Jackman left his iconic multi-decade stint as Wolverine on the highest note you could possibly hit with Logan? Well, we can't have that actually end on its own terms, because Ryan Reynolds made all those Wolverine jokes in the first 2 Deadpool films.
I can't tell you, but it does rhyme with Pulverine.
So we have to completely strip the emotional effect of Logan forever and put Wolverine in Deadpool 3. It's completely bullshit, but everyone ate that shit up when it was announced. Even Hugh Jackman tried to justify it by saying, this is a totally different universe, or it's in the past, or whatever the fuck he said.
So we pre that in the storyline.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter, because the whole purpose of Logan as a film was not to just put an end to Wolverine as we knew him, but it also had a meta purpose for the audience, saying a definitive goodbye to Hugh Jackman as this character, and for Hugh Jackman to do the same. That was the reason the film was made.
In this movie is everything I'd ever wanted to say, felt in my heart, saw in my head.
Will there ever be a more perfect way of saying au revoir to this series? No, unlikely. How can there be?
So you say that now, but we'll get you in another one.
No, I don't think so. No, I mean, I've been hardened going around the world with some fans saying don't, but I hope when fans see the movie, they kind of understand.
But fuck it, the Marvel bag is just too hefty, I guess.
Thank you, Kevin Feige. Love you, Kevin Feige. Thank you, MCU.
And I'm getting a sense, and hopefully I'm wrong, that Avengers Secret Wars or the Kang Dynasty or both will conclude this multiverse saga with the most egregious reprisals of superhero casting from the past in an attempt to not only redo but outdo the Portals moment from Endgame, because again, why look toward the future when looking behind us is so much easier? But this referential trend is not only tied to multiverses, it's kind of pervasive everywhere you go across the mainstream cinematic landscape. I mean, Fast X just came out, and the series has gotten more aware to the discourse around it that in the last film they actually went to space. And in Fast X, if you took a group of people to watch it and the next person had to take a shot every time someone says family, you would all die. Not only that, but Jason Momoa's performance, although in spots is very fun to watch, is not nearly as immersive as it could have been because it's chock full of Jokerisms. And how many villains in a blockbuster do I gotta see that take inspiration from the Joker? And the more the filmmakers are aware of what Fast 5 did for this series, the worse these films have become. This may seem like I'm complaining, but it gets worse. It actually gets way worse. And that comes in the form of the 2021 post-quarantine box office smash, Free Guy. This movie, if you can call it that, is fucking hell, okay? This movie is hell. This was birthed out of the womb of the most vapid, brainless group of people to ever exist. What even is this? Explain this. What is the utility in this? This is beyond criticism and beyond thought. This is a visual hate crime.
That's a lightsaber, dude.
Again, I like fun. I'm a degenerate, okay? Trust me. But this is if a deep-fried, iFunny, fucking Elon Musk repost was a movie.
Well, the catchphrase is a pretty cool catchphrase.
Will you explain to me the joke? Because I don't get the fucking joke. I don't get the joke.
The only thing this film is missing is the oh no 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 sound from TikTok. Remember what I said about Deadpool 3? Yeah, it's the same director.
Like, you know those reaction videos we've all watched a million times on Instagram, the Endgame reaction videos, right? Where like Avengers assemble?
Like I said before, there's comfort in nostalgia, and in these trying times, it's easy to lean into that nagging indulgence. And no one does that better than Disney, the real villain here, and the villain of most issues in cinema at the moment. Pixar's catalog post-Disney acquisition has had some bright spots, but it's been diluted by unnecessary sequels of pre-Wall-E Pixar films. Star Wars, I mean, what hasn't been said, right?
Somehow Palpatine returned.
CGI Carrie Fisher was so bad in Rogue One, the real Carrie Fisher died 2 weeks later. Every Disney Plus show eventually leads up to a giant cameo from the series' glory days. And now, most of their recent and upcoming shows are literally just that from the outset. But I like The Last Jedi, so whatever, sue me. You can cook me now. Give me that free engagement in the comments. But The Last Jedi tells us something that we desperately need to be reminded of on a regular basis.
We are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters.
Arguably, the worst thing Disney does in terms of just creative output are the stupid ass, unnecessary live action remakes, which time and time again, with two exceptions, prove that these stories belonged solely on the page and as animated films. Because animation is not a lesser genre, it's not just for kids. Animation is its own art form. And going back to the catalyst for this video, these animated Spider-Man films have proven that there's so much more ground to explore visually. It's influenced a whole style that other films have taken and run with, and they're profitable, and there's mass interest in these aesthetics. But Disney doesn't give a shit about doing anything new. They'll probably end up doing remakes of their animated films with the Spider-Verse aesthetic at some point, mark my words. At the very least, they're going to try to copy it for future new IP, because they're not interested in innovation or progress. They did the same thing with 3D animation and started doing 3D after they bought Pixar. 3D animation's whole purpose was to ground their stories with a faux realistic aesthetic without edging near the uncanny valley. Every time Pixar comes out with a new film, they relentlessly promote the new realistic aesthetic they're able to do. And there are so many Pixar films that only work as 3D films, and if you try to imagine them as 2D films, they suddenly don't hold up as well. But now Disney is doing a live action remake of Moana. Do I even have to say anything? Do I even have to explain how stupid that is? But people will eat it up because people remember Moana and will be nostalgic for a film that came out 7 years ago. When if they want to do a live action version of it, they could have just done it on fucking Broadway or something. These studios are not the only forces who profit off of this. There's a whole economy of people who focus on this shit on the internet.
I didn't even share all the pictures.
And at a certain point, like the Fast and Furious filmmakers who spend way too much time on the internet, it feels like the well and not so well hidden Easter eggs we see in films are meant to specifically feed into this economy. So when I'm seeing Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse and there's some important information that's being doled out and I see references to things that I know and motherfuckers are screaming in the theater, it's to again feed into this economy. It's as meaningless as hearing that Disney put a gay character in one of their films only for it to be so minuscule that it can be easily removed for China, or the gay shit in it is not central to anything meaningful in the film, or in the case of Strange Worlds, the film is so bad it might as well not even exist. But going back to cinema, there's a way to be meta, to be self-aware, to do multiverses, to do live-action filmmaking, and to be wacky and silly and animated, and that was proven last year with Everything Everywhere All at Once, which swept the Oscars this year. And the thing about the usage of references in that film is that if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, it's not essential to fully enjoying the film. Sure, the Ratatouille reference is really obvious, but I'll take one quick comedic bit in a 2.5-hour film over everything else I've been describing. In conclusion, we're being fed so much self-referential media that once this era ends, I'm wondering, where do we go? Do we go back to being earnest in the vein of something like Top Gun Maverick, or do we push the boundaries even more? Or will it be a mix of both? Do we just combust? I don't know. Either way,
That is not my job.
and I'm sure that once this trend ends, a new cultural phenomenon will sweep the current media landscape, and I'm sure I will come to hate that one too. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you agree or disagree, tell us in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share with your friends. Do all the things. Got a bunch of stuff coming soon, so stay tuned. Okay, bye-bye.
You have to get past the Avengers and Marvel shit at some point, okay? Other people make movies.